Okay, well, it is 11:01 on Tuesday, December 6th. And I will call this City of Lacey Transportation Committee meeting to order. It looks like we have an agenda. Can I get a motion?
I would move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously, and it looks as if we have a one-item agenda today with a right-of-way vacation presentation. It looks like Aubrey Collier, City Engineer, will be delivering.
Thanks. Good morning, council members. So I am here this morning to give a presentation on the Rainier Road right-of-way vacation. So I'm calling it. Technically, it is not on Rainier Road. It is an unnamed right-of-way. So a right-of-way vacation, in general, a right-of-way vacation occurs when a government relinquishes its interest in a public right-of-way on a piece of property. So if a right-of-way is vacated by the city, that means that the property that is within those limits would then belong, it would go back to ownership of the abutting property owners. It would get split 50% on either side of the property line. So this can be initiated by petition. So the council has seen those types of petitions in the past where a property owner has brought forward a petition to vacate the right of way. But it can also be initiated by the city if it's in their interest in the form of resolution. And so if you would like to read further on it, the rules for right-of-way vacations are set in RCW 35.79. So the one in question today, it's a 40-foot unnamed right-of-way. This is off of Rainier Road. So Rainier Road in these photos here is shown along the right. And these homes that you see up here are part of the Indian Summer neighborhood. So this is down in very southern end of Lacey. So this strip of right-of-way right here was originally dedicated in 1921 with the intention that this would, back then they thought this would be, a future roadway connection. Because at that time, none of these homes were here. They thought this would be a future roadway connection to a road that would, be in this area. Portions of the original right-of-way from the original plat were vacated when this area was subdivided. Throughout the years, and eventually a home was actually built right here at the end of where that connection was originally intended to be. So currently, this is basically a little stretch of right-of-way that was intended to be a road that kind of goes to nowhere. It just dead ends, as you can see a little bit better in this aerial photo right here. So the center line of this right-of-way is kind of this red line right here. And so when we say 50% would go to abutting property owners, that would mean 50% would go to the parcel to the south, and then 50% would go to each abutting property owner to the north. So the reason that the city is initiating this, city does not have any maintenance responsibility for this. This right of way serves no public purpose. If the city had paid for right of way, we would then require compensation to vacate the right of way, but in this case, city did not pay for this right of way. So it would not be appropriate to charge the property owners to vacate the right of way in this case. We got this as part of annexation. Here's the more legal exhibit. And we did send a copy of this to property owners. So we sent them a letter last week, just to let, so all of these lots to the north and this lot to the south, we sent them all letters just to let them know of our interest in vacating it. So we haven't started the formal process yet. The first step, we just want to do some public outreach to let them know that we're interested in vacating this. So this a letter was sent along with this exhibit and also an aerial. And our intention is to do some additional outreach before we actually bring the resolution forward to council, just to make sure that all of the property owners are, fully understand, what our intentions are and what the process is before we move forward. So next steps, the resolution that we would propose to bring forward to the council would come at a future date, likely sometime in January, assuming that I'm able to get a hold of all of the property owners, sometime over the next month. Once we bring that resolution forward to the council, that resolution would then set a public hearing date, which would be no more than 60 days out from the resolution date. And the legal requirements would be that the property owners would then need a minimum of 20-day notice prior to that hearing date. So we would obviously want to give them as much notice as possible, but the minimum is 20 days notice. So we'd set that hearing date out approximately 60 days from the resolution. We would then provide all the notice, the official notice to the property owners, with letting them know our intention to vacate and when the hearing is going to be. At that time, if property owners objected, they would have to file a written protest prior to the hearing. And if 50% of the property owners objected, then the city would be prohibited from vacating that right of way.
So under what circumstances would homeowners say, no, we don't want the land?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't see a negative side to this. I can't see a reason why they wouldn't want it. Because in this case, we're not maintaining it or anything like that.
I know with commercial, it could muddy up the title a little bit, Yes, for that, but I've heard of this, but I've never actually seen right away given back before. So this is kind of refreshing, Usually when you have a sunset fee or tax or something, 10 years, they say it never goes away. It's kind of like this, when you have a easement, government easement or city or whatever, they never really ever see it go away. This is.
If you were asking for compensation, I could see there being a scenario there where a property owner might say, well, we don't want it. Why would you force us to pay you for something that we don't want or something? Maybe that could be a scenario
and
where we want it.
Can probably contest the, having less on the title and when you're going through the escrow and doing all that stuff too.
This is it.
Title.
There's a couple citizens here.
Yeah, we do have one of the property owners did come to the meeting today.
Okay, so have you made it through your whole presentation?
So I just want, the last bullet point is just to let you know that after the public hearing, the next step would be, so assuming that that we don't have, property owners objecting, then the next steps would be that the council would decide whether or not to pass the ordinance to vacate the right of way. The ordinance is approved by the city council. City manager would then sign a quitclaim deed for each property abutting the unnamed right of way, and then signed quitclaim deeds would be recorded at the county auditor's office, and then those would be mailed out to the property owner. So that's kind of the full process.
Okay, so discussion.
Yeah, I pretty much went through all mine except for, us touching base on cleaning up the title, and that's good for everybody. And it's good to show the residents that when city doesn't need or have any business with an easement anymore, that they're proactive and,
So we as a city would take care of the title work? So it sounds like to me.
Yeah, we will
We will.
write the deeds and have, the deeds recorded.
Okay, and then underneath this land, this parcel, this extra space, are there any utilities?
No.
None.
No,
There's no.
I don't know if
It's
there's
only
any-
services, there's no
right,
maintenance.
I don't, there's no like mains, I'm not sure if there's any, right, there could be a service line or something like that I'm not aware of, but there's no, like city water mains.
So we're
or-
not handing them off.
So there's no easements, we're not maintaining any like utility easement or anything like that in the area.
Okay,
That was kind of my question too, and sort of a tangential question. All these lots are on city sewer, right? So there's no septic tanks in the mix on this?
Now, the lot to the south is not on city sewer.
that's a septic lot. And so they wouldn't be required to increase any drain field or anything like that, or do we even know that?
That's not part of this process.
Uh,
But if they
So-
wanted to connect to city sewer, it wouldn't be through this easement, this right of way area. It would be somewhere else.
No,
No, the purpose of this easement was for future road connection, so it's not a utility easement.
so I imagine all the 4 lots to the north most likely have fencing there.
Yes, so right now, the fencing is along the edge of this right
So
of way line.
with this situation, we can't require them to build a new fence, right? We just, if they've acquired it, that's that.
Correct.
At that point, it's just,
We vacate it and walk away.
Okay, so there's no requirement that we have that's gonna cost them additional dollars.
no, at that point, you have 5 property owners to the north, a property owner to the south. At that point, they can move their fences, they could keep them there, they could try to negotiate with their neighbors if
Yeah,
they wanted
get
to try
their
to
thing going.
sell or do a boundary line adjustment or something like that. I
So-
mean, that's between property owners.
Okay, so property number 6, which is the one to the west,
Lot, which lot?
this one right here.
Lot
because
number
they-
819?
Yeah. Do they have any, like, because they're there too, do they have any claim to say, well, we should get some of that too?
No, that's not the way that the RCW reads is the way that the right of way is split, it goes,
North and south?
it goes based on the center line of the right of way, it goes to either side.
So it's split longitudinally.
Okay,
So
so we're not gonna
along the
hear
center
later
line,
on that we got
correct.
cheated out of some.
Yeah, they
Part
have
of the steel.
no entitlement there.
Is the driveway for the Kilgore lot paved?
Yes, it is paved.
Man, that's all I can think of. It seems pretty straightforward. We're not saddling anybody with any extra costs to do this. If they should choose to, so in the title work, there's also the boundary line adjustment.
So there is
There's no
no
boundary line
line
adjustment.
adjustment.
No be, okay,
Yeah.
So it just, we would vacate the right of way, and so the you know, the lot boundary line would be, is this red line that goes down the center here.
okay,
But I'm saying at
Which
that
is-
point, their fence line is up here, the lot boundary line would be here.
Okay.
And at that point, the city is totally not involved in it anymore. The
do we,
property owners at that point could decide if they wanted to move their fences, or they could decide to keep their fences there, they could.
if they were to move the fence, would they have to have like a surveyor come out and say, here's the exact line and draw the white line on the ground? Is that, because I don't
mean, that
want-
would probably be appropriate, I mean, at that point, we wouldn't have anything.
we're just
to do with
vacating,
it, you
hey,
know.
whatever you guys decide.
Yeah, we're just saying, yeah, by us vacating it, we're just saying, we don't have any public interest in this.
Okay.
You know, and then that area is just owned by the adjacent property owners, and
Okay, so you guys, right now, we have Mr. and Mrs. Kilgore here in the meeting with us, and if it's all right with this council, I would like them to give them a chance to say something if they would like.
Can we take down the slides so that we can see the room better?
Would you guys mind taking these two seats down here?
Down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
so these are the property owners that own the large lot that is on the south border of the right of way.
Would you guys like to add anything to this meeting?
Yes, we would. You want to, what do you want to add?
Well, the trees that were planted there along that area was by Indian Summers. And they knew where their boundary was, but they came over and asked us if they could plant trees there, and we said, sure, because we had thought about doing that anyway along the driveway. So over the years, as time gone on and everybody's bought the lots out, we have two particular people there that want the trees cut down. And so that they wanted to come over and cut the trees down, and we said, no, we can't cut that down. It's an easement, you know, until Lacey would decide to cut it down, then it'd be fine. But so we've got basically one that's verbal and one that's just standing behind him, that's arguing back and forth that he wants to move the fence. The trouble with Indian Summers is, from what I can tell, they don't have any meetings from the neighborhood. If they do, nobody seems to know when they happen or anything. Indian Summers is located in Texas. So they don't really care what happens in Lacey, right? And so between these two guys, they're wanting to do this stuff, and they want to move that fence over to the line. Well, the line would be like on, was it a foot or 2 feet into our driveway?
It goes, it varies by
It
lot.
varies. Okay. So that's why we came to see what was happening. I assumed somebody else would be here from their side, but they apparently didn't come. So that's where we're at. I don't think Indian Summers would let them move their fence, but this guy's got it in his head that he can move his fence. And
Yeah, I'm not sure that it would be up to Indian Summer, but at that point, it would be the lots are owned by each of those
Yeah.
individual
But
homeowners.
who owns the boundary fence?
Well,
Because
there's,
that fence goes all the way around. Their property goes behind our property, goes all the way over to the properties by the railroad track, and
Yeah, so I guess you'd have to, I'm not sure, that would be something that, I'm not sure about their how their HOA works, if it's something that, if
well,
their
you
HOA.
you don't know
owns.
who owns the boundary fence. See, the boundary fence was put up, and then as the houses were built and bought, then it was up to the individual lot people to put their pieces in.
Yeah, I would assume that'd be the same scenario. If they move their fence line, they would still be responsible as an individual lot owner. I mean,
But see, if they don't, my question is, who actually owns that boundary fence.
Yeah, it's not a concern of ours.
Yeah.
When we vacated it, you know,
Yeah.
like I say, we walk away from it.
You know,
It's,
See,
it's
we've
not
been-
a concern of ours right now.
now, see,
because
we've
it's-
been trying to get this vacated for
Oh, yeah.
over 40 years, going from
When
the
it was-
county, going
yeah.
from the county to the city. And then the city said, we're not gonna vacate it, you know, I said, well, what are you gonna do with it? They said, we're not gonna vacate
We
it.
don't know, but we're.
Say, but now as time goes by, there's more headaches from neighbors, and then now all of a sudden, the city wants to vacate. And, you know, I think a lot of it's to probably get rid of the headaches that it's brought about from our neighbors and us to them. You know, we've been pretty good. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a pretty good squabble that came to the city of Lacey because of a tree that had to be taken down, that the neighbors fought over, you know, and then they wanted the arborist to come out, and the arborist said, take the tree down. So the tree got took down. So, but another question is, the trees that are on that easement, are they free to just cut the trees down, or do they have to have the arborist come out and do like what we do? Get permission to cut down any trees, even the dead trees
3 out of
that are on
5.
our property.
Yeah, they'd have to go through a permitting process to
Okay,
do that.
Follow the tree density requirements of the city.
I was just gonna say, we had the guy out last summer and we're good. We've got a couple extra trees, but some, you know, they are counted as part of our trees.
So just to be clear, as a city, we're not vacating this out of, you know, any kind of, to get out of arguments or out of spite or anything like that.
Oh,
It's just,
no, I
you
never
know,
thought
it's,
that.
and so we, you know, if the parties agree to the situation and there is a majority of agreement,
right.
this will be vacated, at which time, it sounds as if you know, may need to have a little survey done to find out exactly where the line is, so that each person can understand their rights and responsibilities for what trees are on their side of what line.
Yeah.
And so that is, if that's agreeable, then I think that's going to be the best way to move forward in this situation.
You'll see all our property markers are done, and their property markers are done. Now, what it's gonna boil down to is, I'm gonna say from my property markers, 20 feet north is my property. And they're gonna go 20 feet from their property markers to the south is their property markers. So if there's a discrepancy between the two, then it's gonna be just up to us with our neighbors to.
Right.
Well, I'll confirm with Monty to the city surveyor as to whether there will be a record of survey, because as part of the deeding process,
Right,
Monty his crew may be installing corners. So new property corners. So we'll confirm that,
okay.
whether we'll be doing that or not as part of the process.
Well,
I don't know who they got permission from, but our one neighbor that was over, he was gonna started to trim his tree from, you know, that overhangs into his yard. And so when I talked to him about it, he said, well, I was told that anything we wanted to do to these trees trim wise, that we could do it. So I said, okay, so if you decide you want to trim it 6 feet up, you don't care what it looks like from our side of the fence, just what it looks like from your side of the fence, because they've got all those, we call them
Cemetery shrubs.
cemetery shrubs are along the line there, you know, so from their side, they wouldn't see 6 or 8 feet of trimming. Because of the trees they got there. So luckily he he decided, well, okay, we'll just wait and not do any trimming, you know, so nobody has any hard feelings over it.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, well, hopefully through this process, you'll get to have a new reacquaintance with your neighbors and you can work out some of those details. But ultimately, if those lines do get shifted due through the vacation,
Yeah.
then ultimately those property owners would own that tree in totality. So they'd be able to do what they need to do with the
But they
tree.
would still have to file with the city to take that tree out completely.
Yeah, and Rick, oh, there's a question. Yeah, so they would, they still meet their tree density requirements. So if they remove the tree, they would still have to either do replanting and conform with the code.
Yeah.
And I think Councilmember Vasquez has a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Vasquez.
So vacating the right of way means we just split the property down the middle. But if the property owners that are gaining the land wanted to negotiate the line in a slightly different place, what does that process look like?
That's not
We can't-
part of. the city
I know it's not ours, but what would they do if they wanted to come to an agreement and draw the lines in a different place than just split right down the middle?
So Rick can
Go ahead,
answer.
Rick.
After the vacation occurs, then if the property owners have mutual consent, then they can put together a boundary line adjustment proposal that would come through the Community Economic Development Department, be reviewed by our Community Economic Development Department and our survey staff, and ultimately be recorded with the Thurston County auditors. But it'd be a boundary line adjustment process, minor adjustment of land use boundary.
What would happen through Indian summers that can't be reached?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
However, whoever has to go through to get done, we can't do that.
Yep.
And so that would have to be done after what this one simple process that we're trying to get done.
So the process would be between the individual property owners. So, with this going to those individual lots, if they're owned by individual property owners, then it'd be just between the property owners. If Indian Summer HOA has property ownership in there and it's subject to the boundary, then that would trigger their involvement, but it's based on property ownership, not the HOA.
So based on what we're hearing and seeing today, it sounds like this is something that we need to move on to the full council.
But you're gonna initiate the process.
Yeah, before we move it to full council, I would just like to have more conversations with all the homeowners, just to make sure that they're all in support of it. I wouldn't want to waste staff time and just, rush something to council, just to find out that for some reason, all the.
It's not fully baked.
Were right, and they don't.
And so,
Right, and so I would like to do some further outreach. I have sent an initial letter, but none of the other property owners have called me or emailed me, and so I will probably take a next step of, trying to go knock on some doors or maybe trying to send a second letter. But I would like to at least try to have some more outreach or some more conversations with them, just to make sure everyone fully understands the process and what the plan is before we bring it to council. So my hope is that I can continue to try to make contact with everyone throughout the month of December and hopefully try to bring a resolution forward to council sometime in January. That would be the plan. So at this point, we don't need any action from you. It's more just a briefing to let you know kind of what our intention is, and that we plan to do further outreach with all the homeowners, and that pending that, I'm assuming that this is going to be something that is favorable to the homeowners. And pending that my intention would be.
and if they can't agree, then what?
Well, I would say, if the general consensus is that we still have a majority of people that want us to go forward with it, then we would probably still bring it forward. If it's just, one person who says we don't want it, because it's really just,
I know there's not a whole lot of downside to this.
Right,
but
I don't
if-
see a downside in it, and there is no public interest, and we don't maintain it, so it's not, we're not trying to vacate it to avoid any responsibility, because we don't currently maintain it now, and so there's no public interest in it, and there's no, there's
guess-
really no purpose to it, and so I would want to go forward with it, but I don't see a downside, and so I think as long as I have done the public outreach and explained everything to all the homeowners, I don't see there being in opposition to it, but you know, I would like to just fully vet it and talk to everyone before I bring it forward.
Okay, so you fully vet it, you talk to everyone and they can't seem to agree for whatever reason. And we don't get 50%. I guess is my.
Then we just keep it, right?
Then
Then
I
it
would-
remains a
then
city
we would
right of
just
way.
Keep it, you know, like I said, we don't have a maintenance responsibility, so it's not costing us any money. Every once in a while, it does cost just a little bit of staff time as far as answering questions. Every once in a while, a question comes up, you know, on, you know, this is your right of way. Kind of asking the city for us to take some responsibility in it, but it's not something that we maintain. And so the answer is typically like, no, sorry, we are not
So
maintaining anything in there. So
Mr. and Mrs. Kilgore said they support it if they continue to support it. And
Yeah,
if
we've
just,
always maintained it.
if just one other property owner supports it, then there's more than 50%. And staff's recommendation would be, regardless of everyone else's opinion, that it needs to be vacated to just be cleared off the books.
But we need 2 out of those 4 plus
Not
these
just
guys.
one,
Just 1 out of the 4.
because they have 50%.
Right. Okay,
Can I offer a point of clarification?
please.
If the city in this situation wouldn't be seeking support from the property owners, the 50% that is noted in the RCW is after the council passes a resolution setting a public hearing. If more than 50% of the property owners file written objections, then the city can't go forward. So there's really no process whereby we're going to be seeking support. It's going to be whether people file written objections. And if they don't, then we would have our answer.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So City Attorney Dave. Okay, so then does anybody have anything else on this matter?
I do. If this is vacated and everything, then everything goes to the increase in the property goes for and is filed for tax purposes. Are we gonna get hit with back taxes from this point back to when the city of Lacey inquired the property?
That's an interesting question, but I don't think the county can do that.
Well, we were hit with one of the utilities that actually got us for back tax or for back payments, some type of a back payment on our bill when we
Just check
became,
that with the county to make sure. Yeah.
When we became the city.
yeah.
Okay, we'll check with the county on that, just to make sure. So that you have a clear understanding of what you're getting into. And I understand, you know, anytime we do something like this, or anytime you are acquiring something or adding to something, you want to know, you know, as much as you can about it. And I like people to be really informed
Right.
as much as possible so that they know exactly what they're getting into. I hadn't anticipated that question, but it is a good question. Are you going to have to pay some kind of additional tax for all the years that you didn't own the property?
Right,
So there may be a situation where when you're in the county, you did not pay utility tax
right.
because unincorporated county is exempt by state law. But when you go
Okay,
into
that's what it
an,
was, utility.
okay, so when you come into an incorporated city, you're subject to on your cell phone bill, your power bill, you would have to pay utility tax. So I think that's separate from property. Like that's a different, you're just subject to a new tax where you weren't in the county.
Okay.
But I mean, we could at least verify that. I've not heard of a retro property tax. That's more of a California thing.
yeah, I don't think so, but I
Yeah.
will confirm, just,
I don't wanna-
you know, to
I
put
don't
your
want
mind
a
at ease.
surprise letter in the
Right.
mail, you know?
No, right,
It's
right.
tell me we owe back taxes on stuff like that, so I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.
And it looks like we have reached the end of our agenda. And so if there is no objection, I will call this meeting adjourned.